What is a soundbite? A soundbite is a concise and cohesive string of words that conveys a message quickly, with impact, that gets your message out. So part of interfacing with the media requires that we discipline ourselves and learn to speak in sound bites. When you are interviewed by the press, I have two really simple bits of advice for you. Number one, be concise, or don't ramble, to put it negatively. And number two, stay on message, or said a little bit differently, answer the questions that help you and ignore the questions that would try and drag you down some miry path. For example, if a press person says to you, "Isn't your presence here a threat to all American women?" You do not answer the question, "Our presence here is not a threat to American women," because then the headline is, "John Smith denies his presence is a threat to American women." If someone says, "Isn't your threat here, or your presence here a threat to American women?" you just stay on point. And you say, "We are here today to speak up for all unborn babies, male and female. And half of the babies killed in the womb are females." So for someone to say that they're pro-woman while they're killing women, they are hypocrites. There's your soundbite. Now, let me play a few soundbites for you of some press stuff that I've done in the past so you can get a feel for it, right? This is from CNN.
If you've been following the story, you may have noticed a familiar name and a face at some of the news conferences for Terry Schiavo's parents. His name is Randall Terry, and Rudy Bakhtiar went in depth on his story to bring you an angle you won't see anywhere else.
Randall Terry is back at the mic.
Here's the supporting documents for those in favor of life and justice.
The man once famous for throwing his body in front of abortion clinics is now on stage outside of a new clinic, the hospice housing Terry Schiavo.
But originally they got me involved because they knew that I was kind of a lightning rod and that me even coming would help jumpstart things. So that was a part of a larger piece that CNN did on me. But even at the end there, "Why are you here, Mr. Terry? Why did they contact you?" Bang. The family knew I was a lightning rod. They called me here to jumpstart things. And that is why Terry Schiavo's horrific murder and her plight became international news. Because I knew what I was doing utilizing the press. All right, here is a soundbite where we look at judges and how that so many of the ills that are plaguing America are coming not from our elected officials, certainly not from the voters, but coming from judges. Whether it has to do with child pornography on the internet, or the Pledge of Allegiance having "under God" in it, or the 10 Commandments in Alabama, or homosexual marriage in Massachusetts or Vermont. Where do all these things come from? Judges. On point, quick, concise, 10, 12 seconds. If you ramble and you go all over the place, they don't have the time at their disposal for an evening news broadcast. Let's go to this clip. She is in the agonizing position of dying of thirst. She's on fire while politicians fiddle. Notice that I did not say her human dignity is being betrayed. My words were intense. My facial expression was intense. She literally was starved to death. She was dehydrated to death. So she's in the agonizing place of dying of thirst. She's on fire while politicians fiddle. That's an allusion, of course, to Nero fiddling while Rome burned. If you can think of a way to communicate your message that has a historic reference or that it's got some good meter in it, it's useful, all right? Now here's one where I politically threaten politicians, especially Republican pro-life politicians. And as it turns out, you may remember that the U.S. Congress actually passed some type of resolution in support of Terry Schiavo living, all right? So it was amazing when you look back at the level of people that got involved. And it's also equally tragic that Jeb Bush, the then governor of Florida, did not have the courage and the integrity to simply intervene when he had the authority to do so. But I digress. So here's a soundbite for Republicans. If she dies, there is going to be hell to pay with the pro-life, pro-family, Republican people of various legislative levels, statewide and federal-wide, who have used pro-life, pro-family, conservative rhetoric to get into power, and then when they have that power, they refuse to use it. Notice that I did not equivocate. If you equivocate in your interviews, or if you try and argue both sides, then you're not defending your position clearly, and you're not interesting. And if you're not interesting, and if you're equivocating, you're probably not going to get covered. So be the advocate for your position that you're supposed to be, and leave the other side to their own machinations. And finally, what I want to do is play an audio clip from an interview that I did with Sean Hannity on his radio show. And I want you to see that in this segment, if you're covered on live radio, you've got talk radio in your town, you don't have to speak in quite as clipped of sound bites. If you've got a 2 or 3 or 6 minute interview, you can develop your argument a little bit more, as I will show you in this example.
But Randall, apparently you're right up there with radicals that are involved in jihad and murder.
Well, I guess I'm a little bewildered at that comparison, but the fact is this. We tore pages out of the Quran that called for us to be crucified, to be beheaded, to be murdered, to be banished, and to be imprisoned. Now, again, these are passages in Surah chapter 5, Surah chapter 8, Surah chapter 47. People can read them. People can Google that press release we sent out that tells the chapter. Read chapter 5. Just read chapter 5 of the Quran.
The backstory there is that we had done a series of events around the country where we were tearing up passages, big sheets of paper that had passages from the Quran that called for Christians and Jews and infidels to be murdered. And again, we did not equivocate. We spoke, we were covered, and we helped in our mission to show that historic Islam is an inherent threat to Christian liberty, as the blood of Christian martyrs throughout the Middle East will testify. So these are examples of sound bites. You can go to our website, voiceofresistance.com. You can see a lot more examples there. And in the next segment, we're going to discuss press releases. So if you want to know how to do a press release, how to write one, stay with me. Then maybe you'll get coverage and your voice will be heard.